Mr. President, we say that America is a nation of immigrants, and of course that's true. There's no other country in the world for which immigration is so central to its history and its identity. But let's take a moment to reflect on what that really means. Here's a photo. I'm afraid it's not very good quality. I took it myself. It's a photo that I took at a naturalization ceremony held for active duty service members in Fort Carson, Colorado. The 13 soldiers and spouses who became United States citizens on that day represented 11 different countries of origin, even though they're wearing our uniform. They came from all over the world: Colombia, Haiti, Malaysia, Mexico, Nicaragua, China, the Philippines, South Korea, Togo, Ukraine, and the United Kingdom. 11 different countries, Mr. President, and they all came in pursuit of the American dream. They all came to serve this country, and they're going to be people that help us determine our future. Same with the refugees fleeing persecution from around the world, the parents seeking opportunity for their children, and those stepping forward to serve and to sacrifice for our shared values that have made this country the America that we love. But our existing immigration policies do not reflect this history or the values that shaped it. Instead, it's a mess of unintended consequences that hurt our businesses, rip families apart, and keep us at a competitive disadvantage with the rest of the world. Tomorrow marks 365 days, 1 year, since the Senate acted to fix these problems and passed bipartisan immigration reform. Yet here we are, still waiting for the House of Representatives to do the same. The House's inaction is costing our nation. It has cost us, among other things, $13.4 billion in lost revenue in this last year alone. And with each additional day that passes, we lose another $37 million of revenue. But what's most frustrating about this, Mr. President, to me, is that we agree on both sides of the aisle that our current immigration system is broken. We agree that our immigration system is critical for our economy and for our country. In June of last year, we passed a bill in this chamber with strong bipartisan support. It won the support of a broad coalition of Republicans and Democrats. It also has the support of countless organizations, from migrant workers to farmers and ranchers, from law enforcement agencies to the faith community, Latino leaders across this country, the Chamber of Commerce to labor unions. Often I tell those who despair about the lack of leadership in Congress that there's a model we can learn from, and it's the bipartisan work that was done on this bill. I cannot say enough about the Republican members of the Gang of Eight, willing to negotiate a bill over 7 and 8 months, knowing what the base of their party might say about the fact that they were in their room, but willing to do it. Willing to do it because it was the right thing to do for the country, willing to do it because it's the right thing to do for their party, in that order. In this job, I've had the opportunity to meet with a diverse cross-section of Coloradans throughout the state, each struggling beneath the weight of a broken immigration system. I've spoken with peach growers on the West Slope, vegetable growers in Brighton, and melon farmers in the San Luis Valley, farmers like Philip Davis from Mesa Winds Farm and Winery in western Colorado, who can't get the seasonal workers he needs. He'll tell you how hard he and his family have had to work to fill these gaps, and how every single day they've got to keep fighting to prevent their 36-acre farm from closing. A legal, reliable, competent workforce for our nation's farms and ranches is essential for Colorado's $40 billion agriculture industry, and it's essential for our agriculture industry across the country. And maybe that's the reason why both the Farm Workers Union and the growers all across the United States of America endorsed this bill. I've heard from Colorado's high-tech companies, such as Full Contact, a tech startup in Boulder, Colorado, that recently acquired a company overseas. They've been unable to hire the talented engineers they need to grow their businesses and add jobs. I've also heard from Colorado's dedicated teachers and administrators who work tirelessly to teach the next generation of entrepreneurs and innovators. Teachers like Mary Edwin from Colorado Springs. Mary, a graduate of Johns Hopkins with a master's degree in education, will likely be forced to return home to Nigeria, leaving behind the children she works with at Terman Elementary School, all on account of our broken, outdated visa system. This year, on April 7th, approximately 6 months before the 2015 fiscal year even begins, the government announced that it had already reached its statutory cap on H-1B petitions for H-1B visas. It's also reached its exemption for 20,000 advanced degree holders. These are exactly the type of workers our state and the national economy require. Now, let me paint a picture of what our country would look like if the Senate's immigration bill were actually enacted. First, millions of people who came to this country for a better life, including young people whose parents brought them here as children, would have the opportunity to enter a tough but fair pathway to citizenship. With a path in place, we'd see higher wages, greater consumption of goods, and increased revenues. It would reduce our debt by nearly $1 trillion, $1 trillion. Even in Washington, that's real money, over 20 years, and increase our GDP, our economic growth, by roughly 5.4% over that period of time. Next, our bill would put in place an efficient and flexible visa system that would enable us to compete in a changing 21st century global economy. Talented entrepreneurs and innovators from around the world would have the opportunity to stay here in order to create jobs and fuel our economy. High-skilled workers in math and science and lower-skilled workers in industries like hospitality and tourism would come into the country to fill jobs where there are no available U.S. workers. We provide stability for our agriculture industry with a new streamlined program for ag workers, one that's more usable for employers and that protects our workers. And our borders would be more secure. There's one border security bill that's passed the United States Congress, and that's the bill passed by the Senate. With new fencing, doubling the number of border agents, increasing spending on new technology, we'd have full situational awareness on the border in order to allow us to intercept threats rapidly and successfully. And with a mandatory employment verification system and more effective entry-exit system, we would prevent future waves of illegal immigration. A huge number of the people that are here entered the country legally. We just don't know where they are. We ought to have a system that tells us that. These are all changes that our nation urgently needs. In the time since the Senate passed the bill, we've heard a litany of reasons why it can't pass the House. They say the Senate bill doesn't have support in the House. If Speaker Boehner put the bill on the floor tomorrow, it would pass. They say the Senate bill is too long, too big, too comprehensive. I, for one, am willing to consider looking at this bill in smaller pieces as long as all of the problems with the system are addressed. But the House hasn't produced, never mind voted on, a single bill, much less a series of smaller bills. They say they want more border security, but what do they know about the border that our Republican colleagues from Arizona, John McCain and Jeff Flake, don't know? What do they know about the border that Senator Flake and Senator McCain don't know? We have 21,000 border agents. We're putting another 21,000 on the border if this bill were passed. We spend more money on the border than we do all other federal law enforcement combined, but they say that there's not enough border security. Not that they've passed a border security bill. The only folks who have are right here in the United States Senate. We should be asking them, how many more agents do they need? How many more billions of dollars should we spend? If the House wants to secure the border first, which the Senate bill does, let's see their legislation. We're waiting. I, for one, would like to see them think about customs agents and trade instead of adding more billions of dollars at the border. The most common excuse we've heard is that the House hasn't had time to pass a bill. The House was only scheduled to work 9 days last September. Ultimately, they came back for a few extra days to shut the government down. In the years since the Senate passed the bill, the House has found the time to vote 17 times to repeal, delay, or dismantle the health care bill, 54 times in total in the last 4 years. They voted to name 20 post offices, an assortment of 20 other government buildings. They've held 5 separate House committee hearings. They've produced 3 different public reports. They passed 1 resolution on the topic of Benghazi, a topic that never has come up in most of our town halls. In Colorado, what I hear over and over again is we've got to stop excuses, stop posturing, and pass a bill, a good bipartisan bill. And that's what the House of Representatives ought to be doing now. Fixing our broken immigration system is long overdue, and I believe that the bipartisan solution crafted in our Senate bill will fix it just fine. It's time for the House to act. And with that, Mr. President, I yield the floor. I thank my colleague again for his patience and his kindness in letting me go first.